Polkadatta. I'm the artistic director at ISAF. Welcome to day 5, our final day. We have a jam-packed day of really powerful, amazing films today, so I'm glad you're here to join us for that. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that our event takes place on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish First Nations, the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nations, as well as the Katsi, Semiahmoo, and Kwantlen Nations. Each year, September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The day honors the children who never returned home and the survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. ISAF is a testament to the collective efforts of a community that believes in the power of South Asian narratives. Our theme this year is Crossroads, which celebrates South Asian cinema and culture as a hub and a place where many roads intersect. I'd like to give a special mention to our platinum sponsor, RBC, as well as our gold sponsors, ADMI Group, Allure, Creative BC, Canada Media Fund, Telefilm, Kwantlen Polytechnic, City of Surrey, and Warner Brothers Discovery Access Canada. Today we're here for the screening of 2 very powerful films. There is a short documentary called Inheriting Amritsar, directed by Kabir Birk, who is in the house with us. And following that will be a feature documentary, Ray of Hope, directed by Nikila Cole and Ryan Singh, who are also here with us. So this is very exciting for us to have all the filmmakers. I will not be talking for the rest of the screening or the Q&A. We have a special guest to do that for us. So I'd like to invite over Richard Raghu, who is the treasurer of Doc Northwest and the co-founder and producer of Dada Ibis Media. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. ISAF, along with Doc Northwest, are pleased to present 2 films. The first is the short film Inheriting Amritsar by director Kabir Birk, a day in the lives of generational shopkeepers in the city of Amristar, Punjab. Our second film is a documentary, Ray of Hope, by Ryan Singh, producer, writer, director, and Nikila Cole, also writer, director, and producer. The 26-year armed conflict in Sri Lanka compelled numerous Tamil Elams to seek refuge in foreign nations, notably Canada. Among them, Rathika Sitsabaiesan, a former Canadian member of parliament, who fled the Sri Lankan civil war with her Tamil family during her childhood. The anguish and tales of conflict drove Rathika's advocacy. In 2013, her visit to Sri Lanka rekindled her own traumatic memories as she was surveilled by the very government accountable for the widespread suffering. Before we jump into the screening, let's invite the director of Inheriting Amritsar, Kabir Birk, to say a few words about the project.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for coming today. It's a privilege to have Inheriting Amritsar here at ISAF. I'll let the film kind of speak to itself. I think if I did want to share anything, it's, being born and raised in Canada, periodically making trips to Punjab with your family, you're exposed to, in ways, a different culture, because, again, our culture here is very different to the culture in Punjab and in India. But what occurred to me kind of making these visits, and specifically in this most recent visit where we shot this film, just the bevy, dozens, almost hundreds of shops kind of lining the streets of Amritsar, a true retail culture and a bustling retail landscape in that province of Punjab. I just felt it was fertile ground for some storytelling, so we kind of walked into some stores. We had mutual connections in some, others were very open and willing to share their stories with us, and found some interesting parallels in the stories they were telling. And just if there's one thing I wanted to say as well is, anyone who works in documentary can probably attest. It was a real privilege to have these business owners, some who've been running a business over generations, share their intimate stories with us, share their passion, their livelihood, and in some ways an uncertain future. So that's all I'll say for all Inheriting Amritsar, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Kabir. Doc Northwest will be giving you a free 1-year membership to Doc. After the 1 year, you can sign up for an additional 2 free years as a member of the BIPOC community.
Oh, thank you. I actually already have a Doc membership though, so we're good there.
You take $1 million.
Thank you. First question, we'll go to Ryan. Ryan, can you let us know what inspired or drove you to produce this documentary?
I had just come back from South Africa in the spring, and on December 16, 2013, I met with Rathika for lunch, and we were talking, and she's telling me that she's going back to Sri Lanka. And I said to her, hey, she's asking me if I can recommend some cameras, and I said to her, if you can afford it, maybe you can take me and I'll just capture your images. And she thought about it for 5 seconds and said, sure, come. She bought a ticket for me to go with her. But we weren't planning on telling a story. And for the next 9 years, I spent trying to get people from the community to help us tell what we experienced for the 6 days of being on the siege. And in 2022, I wanted to get projects off my plate, and I felt that this story really needed to be told. And so I opened up my wallet and everything that I can to go in and tell this story. And I was fortunate to get an opportunity to do the Breakthrough program. And so I started to rethink what I wanted to say. And as I observed the community, I realized that there was so much of the community that is in third party, or the first party stories are within the community. And so how are we able to translate this story so that it can meet a wider audience? And that's where I got my team together, and our team comprised of mostly people outside of the community, because as Kapana would explain to you, there's still the long arm of the Sri Lankan government that threatens families still to this day.
Nikki, can you maybe go through with us what drew you to the story that would allow you to get involved in it?
Mm-hmm. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Richard, for doing this. It's been an honor to be part of this festival. So thankful. I was in Toronto under quarantine during the pandemic in a basement, and I got a call from my friend Ryan, who said, I've got this footage, and it's this footage that I shot when I went to Sri Lanka 7 years ago. And he told me the story of what had happened there, and I went, that's an incredible story. Plus, I knew about Sri Lanka when I was a little kid, growing up in Vancouver, and I knew that there was, civil war was all I knew, and that there was something called the Tamil Tigers, and then everything disappeared off the radar. And I grew up in a family that was very politically conscious. We had the news on all the time, and it simply didn't exist anymore, and I forgot about it. I completely forgot about it until Ryan called me. And he said, he's trying to figure out what to do with this footage. And I said, this is an incredible story that I'd like to know more about. And also this woman, this woman sounds amazing. I would really, I'd love to participate. And it was against all odds, because I also asked him if he had any funding. Which he said, no, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I said, well, as your friend, I think you're insane. This is my 4th feature documentary. I know what this is all about and what it takes out of a person. I said, but as a filmmaker, I said I would love to participate, and I'll help you any way I can. That's how it happened.
When we first spoke a couple of days ago, you mentioned the dance, and how that also attracted you to it, and you were surprised. And tell us about that, and that history back, and what that meant to you, seeing that.
Thank you. Well, now that you've seen the whole thing, when we spoke, you hadn't seen that part yet. So Rathika and I met on the phone, and we just clicked instantly. But then we still had to meet with everybody in the team and how it was all going to work. And we were on a Zoom, and Rathika was in the lower left-hand Zoom box. I remember that. And she mumbled something. She said, well, I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer. And I said, I beg your pardon? I said, could you say that again, please? She said, I'm a classically trained professional Bharatanatyam dancer. And I said, oh my. I'm a former dancer and choreographer, and many, many, many years ago, when I was dancing in London, I studied Bharatanatyam dance for a year. I'm terrible Bharatanatyam dancer, but it killed my knees. I had to stop. But I said, okay, I know how I'm going to participate. I see the way in for me in this film. I said, we're going to use your dance. I know this technique. I know how expressive it is. I said, we're going to use it to tell the story. And so that was sort of the clincher of the deal for me.
All right, good. Katpana, you were instrumental in, I believe, some of the research into the project as well. Can you let us know a bit about that?
Sure. I actually met Ryan in Geneva in 2022. A stranger approached me, said that he was making a film about my story, because this story, Rathika's story, is a lot of people's story. I was a 3-year-old child in the 83 riots. Our house was targeted, set on fire. We fled to Sri Lanka in 1985. So I know the story, lived the story, and very cautious when an outsider wants to tell your story. We don't know what perspective they want to bring. So I'll be honest, I'll share with everyone here, I was very hesitant, and I actually declined to be a part of the story. He asked if I would share my perspectives, but I was and still am a very active human rights activist. My son, I brought him to watch this movie. We talk about it, but not much, and he's sitting and watching the film, and he asked me for the first time today, so can you go back to Sri Lanka? And we're gonna have a really good discussion. I can already sense that on the way home. So I hesitated, but Ryan reached out afterwards and said, hey, we have some really good footage together. I'd like you to watch. I'd like you to get your perspective. So, we watched a few clips and cuttings, and, I was able to provide my feedback to him and fully fell in line with the story that he was telling. And yes, I maybe regret not being a part of his story today, but I'm glad the story is being told. That's what's most important to me and to the activist community that I'm a part of. Very rarely do we get people and get the opportunity to have the voice to share this story. The conflict in Sri Lanka doesn't have the sensational or the geopolitical strategies that are going on in the world to get the attention that we need for justice and accountability. So we need the arts, we need dance, we need advocacy at the United Nations level to keep the story alive. It's been 15 years since the end of the armed conflict in Sri Lanka, but not a single person has been held accountable. And it's through stories that Ryan is telling, that Rathika is telling, that lets people hear my story, lets our children hear the story, and hopefully world leaders hear the story as well, so that we can get that justice one day.
Good. Thank you for that. Why don't we open up the floor for a couple questions? Are there anyone with questions? Yeah.
Well, the movie is great. It's excellent. So I have been in Vancouver for more than 35 years. We have been doing this in Vancouver as a protest and awareness campaign for a long time here. And even I was telling you the story May 17th in Artillery last time this year. So the story is very, very important for our generation, young generation to learn about it. But this film is done very good, excellent. It's really, really telling the real story. All the facts are in place. But at the end, what we are going to do next? So what is the international community's responsibilities? What is Security Council responsibilities? What is this veto power doing this? What is Permanent Security Council responsibilities? What is ICGU? How difficult to get to the ICGU, International Criminal Court? Is the process that organizing the legal team and succeed in this and bringing this in the legal format, right? So those kind of things at the end, we had to give the responsibility to whom, right? Who is responsible? The world international community gave arms and ammunition for Sri Lankan government for a long time. And 20 countries together, they did all the destruction of our Tamil community, even including the genocide for 20 years. 20 countries together. So they all have the responsibility to resolve this matter, because war is over 15 years now. So now they have to bring the political solution, permanent solution. The permanent solution need to be, based on the self-determination. So, Canada, we have the confederation. So something like that to bring the permanent solution to our Tamil community. We have been struggling for more than 70 years. My parents, my dad, they all suffered since 1948. So we are still having a problem in my family too. So the film is very good. I am very happy. So the fellow Canadians going to see it. Not only fellow Canadians, the international community going to see it. So that's a great film, great story. Like Aboriginal people today, this season is for the Aboriginal people Reconciliation Day. So I know that when I came to Canada 35 years before, how these Aboriginal communities suffered on Main and Hastings Street area. How they bring the attention to the Canadian community. When I go back to my workplace, I go and discuss this, and they give different opinion about those Aboriginal people. And the same token for the gay community, lesbian community, how they suffered, how they fight for the rights. Now, this all, still world need to do lots of things to do, lots of room to improve themselves. So there's lots of work to do. But the politicians are here to protect human beings. So anyway, thank you, appreciate it. Very good, well done, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying all that you've just said. And one of the things I want to say is that we're containers. We're outsiders. We're containers. Part of the journey that we have, we've as a team decided that we're going to compete for the Academy Awards because we want to be able to get as much platform as possible on a project like this. But we can't do it alone. We need the community itself to take us into places that we can't go in, and to bring this film and to show it to the community so that they can show it to their friends. Everybody bringing 10 friends each, we can get to the world.
Another question? Yes?
And speak loud, please.
Please.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Brian, there was this one frame in which there was this child with a gun in his hand, pointing at something. How'd you come upon that?
We were visiting a priest, and in the yard, that's child's play. Children playing with guns is common in any post-colonial communities. I remember as a child buying toy guns. In Canada, you don't do that anymore because I remember as a child when I was playing with guns, the cops came around. But in our Caribbean countries, in our Indian communities, gun is one of those things that you give children as a child, and they play with it. It's sold in every corner store. So
Toy guns.
Toy guns.
Yeah, that's correct. We had a question. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing this beautiful film. I had a question. You mentioned, Ryan, how, when you first came upon this idea to make this film, you kind of reached into your own wallet and thought, I need to make this film. I'm wondering if you could share a bit about your journey in terms of getting support from the Canadian filmmaking community, the funding community here in Canada, and maybe even internationally. Understanding from the stories in the film that sharing the story is still something that is hard to do. There are forces that try and keep these stories from being told. And so I wonder if you could share a bit about that and getting support from the filmmaking community and funding community at large.
That's a big question, and I'll answer it as briefly as I possibly can.
Basically, what type of funding and opportunities were you able to access to get the documentary done?
Initially, nothing. Every person that I turned to, every organization, every broadcaster said that this is a story that A, is not relevant anymore, B, it's not timely, C, it's not a topic they're interested in seeing at the moment. And so I persevered, and I went into the community to try and find community broadcasters, because if we're going to get tax credits, we need a broadcaster or distributor. And we went to one of the smallest broadcasters, Tamil Entertainment Television, and they came on as our first champion. And then we went beyond that to the CMF. The CMF came on as a partner.
Canada Media Fund.
That's Canadian Media Fund. And then we went on to ask through a fundraising campaign. We went for $50,000, we got $3,000. And then we went to the community and asked for help. We used programs like Ripen, which is a government-funded mentorship programs for students. And we brought on some students on that. We got mentorship funding from the Canadian Media Producers Association. So we used every little pieces of things that we could.
Canada Council for the Arts has given us some travel funding, which is where we've been able to.
That's post.
Right.
During
Yeah.
is what happened. And so now that we have a product, what we've had is that people have seen the product, seen the proof of the concept, and now can say, hey, I see that you can deliver on something. Now we're having interest. We've secured our first acquisition for the project, which is exciting for us. And yeah, that's some of what we've done.
Okay, good. Final questions, I think, for each of you guys. What's next for you on the subject? What is your hope for the future of Tamils living abroad and in Sri Lanka?
That's a heavy question to end off with. As I mentioned, it's justice and accountability. It's always been that. And keeping the voice alive. We don't want the story to be hidden and to be masked by what else is going on in the world. And we have to say thank you to Ryan and others and other filmmakers who want to make the story to keep it relevant. And so I think going forward, we as a Tamil community, or myself, our next generation, will continue to tell the story to ensure that justice and accountability is achieved for our people, and that maybe one day I can return home safely to take my children to visit our ancestral lands, because right now it's definitely not a safe place. And so that's our hope, that one day we will be able to do that.
Nikki?
Yeah, this is a film about what human beings do to each other and have been doing unspeakable things to each other for centuries. And yes, it's a specific story, and I'm very, very honored to have been part of the telling of the story, listening to the stories. I've learned so much that I had no idea about. For me, that's a bigger picture, is that if we can be a part in some way of shining a light on the humanity and the inhumanity that happens in situations like this in the past, in the present, all over the world, and hopefully, maybe stop this insanity, to contribute towards the stopping of this insanity, which doesn't make any sense. Why we do this to each other, why we're doing this to our planet, what are we doing? It's just nuts to me. So that's my hope for the future.
Ryan?
And for me, it's a little bit more personal. And that personal is coming to ISAF this weekend, this last few days. And if I had known in 2013 that I could have just come to Vancouver and find so much of my culture through film, I would have not traveled to Sri Lanka and got such a great film. But that's what I discovered being here, is that we're responsible for the stories we tell, and we need to continue to turn on our cameras and tell our very specific stories. Because if we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell it for us, and they'll tell it the way they want to. So thank you so much, ISAF, for the work you're doing here, and for having me and having us with this story.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been an amazing festival. Amazing festival.
Thank you to ISAF and Doc Northwest for co-presenting this screening. I think the guys are available outside if you guys want to have a couple more questions or anything like that. Thank you.